I'm going to start laying out the gauges. Nick and I kind of talked about where to put everything, how to do it, and I'm just going to draw them out on the plates, put them back in, and then we'll look at them and evaluate, is that where we want it to be? Now, granted, we kind of have a little bit of a problem. Because this cab's narrower, we have a lot going on to try to make it fit in there and look visible, but because we put the shifter for the transmission right here, the tack would have been better in that corner, but we couldn't because that knob sticks out and we couldn't get any closer here. And your throttle, you got to worry about the steering wheel. So there's a visibility that's going to have, well, let's just say there's going to be areas that won't be as good to look at, as pleasant, but I think it'll work out. We just have to do what we got to do. So make do with what we got. So now I'm going to start to mark out, figure out the placement of all the gauges. I think we'll be, that's the next step, because I need to do all the mock-up of everything in there, figure out where the foot pedal is going to go, which we kind of talked about, pull the chair out then and do some welding and cutting. Yeah. I went ahead and pulled the steering column and everything out of the dash. There's a few things I need to weld up underneath there, but one thing I need to do is how do I anchor the plates with all the gauges and everything to the dash? Well, I'm going to put some bolts through, but I got to drill these holes out a little bit. Here's my plan. So I went to town and went and got these. They're over here by the lathe. What they're for is you put it in when you're doing woodworking projects. You can pre-drill a hole, and then they got these little tabs on them that you pound in, so then when you want to bolt a piece of wood to another piece of wood, you have threads. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these threads, I put them on here with a bolt, cutting off these little barbs that pound in. I'm going to use this to weld on the back side of the dash, and then I've got a nice wonderful thread for the dash to screw to. So what I'm doing right now is taking off the barbs. Perfect. Now I got some drilling to do on the dash and then some welding, and we should be good to go on that part. Now I went ahead and pre-drilled the back side of the dash, and that way I can insert the stub end into the dash. It'll sit like this behind, and then it'll be a nice flush face on the back side, and I'll just tack weld the big washer deal on this, whatever you want to call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bolt through, tighten this little nut washer thing together. I don't know what to call it, but I'm going to anchor it tight, and then I'm going to tack weld it on the back side, then take the nut out, or the bolt out, move it to the next one, and keep going through until I get them all done. So that's the plan. So far it's looking okay. I'm okay with it, but lots of welding and fabricating. After a little bit of tweaking on the holes to line them all up, I had to drill just a few of these out, just barely enough, because the bolts were slightly bent. They came that way, it wasn't me. So they kind of wobbled as they go in. So I had to make a little bit of clearance, but everything so far looks really good. And this is how it's going to be. Now, this hole for the steering column is not perfectly round. It was, and then I forgot about the rod that goes to your key ignition that goes up and down. So I had to notch it slightly just to make enough room for it so it doesn't hit. But other than that, I think it looks good. We're going to have a bunch of probably switches on this side, maybe a few here. So we're going to leave this open until we actually figure out where we need to do it, and then we can drill those holes. But other than that, I'm happy. So this means I am done with that dash part. And I'm going to pull it all apart. And I got a lot of welding, patching up around the frame, not the frame, but the cab, and lots of grinding. Lots of grinding. After grinding and grinding and grinding and a little bit of welding around the cab, I'm pretty much done with a lot of that touch-up stuff, but what I have to do now is readjust the door. Reason why, the door is actually crooked and it's a bigger gap up here, tiny gap down there. We put a seal around the door, it's not gonna seal correctly. So, that came from the factory, wasn't us. These hinges are kind of wore out too anyways, so I need to cut these off. I need to cut these off on this, and then we're gonna do these half bend hinges. They should be good. And then if we need to, we can pick the door off, move it, put it back down, and then yeah, it'll be quite convenient. Oh man, this is it's turning out pretty good. You want to see? Shuts really, really well actually. Like you don't even have to slam it, it just clicks right in. Now there's a 1/4 inch gap all the way around roughly. The cab has a slight bit of a bow. It's actually not the door. The cab has a little bit of a bow here, and it's part of this beam that is back here. I have no way to really straighten it enough. We did press this out just a little bit because it bowed inward. The front here, it's pretty straight, but the gasket that we're gonna get, I think it's gonna be close to a 1/2 inch thick, which is like 12 millimeter, and then it can squish down to like 6 millimeter or so. There's a couple different versions we're gonna go with, but I like it. Just some more welding to do around here, a little bit clean up, and we're done with the door.
Somehow we managed to be back in this position again. So Leg Arms is working hard while I've been out spraying. And he's got this cab where I think we want it. So it's time to turn it from metal look to gray primer look to eventually white, a nice black interior look. We got a few more parts too that need some paint and primer. So we're gonna bring the service truck in. He's gonna use the digger derrick crane. We're gonna pick this cab up, put it in the air. That way we can spray the underside, spray all around, we'll put it back down, and then do it again tomorrow. By the way, it's raining outside. Gotten almost 2/10, so it's now usable rain again. That's good. 1/10, not usable. 2/10, usable. So we like 2/10. Isn't this awkward? All right, well, we just quickly lifted this up. He primed the underside. We just set it down. So now we're done with the truck. So that's just gonna wait till the next time we go to paint. But now it's the priming time. So let's ever get everything just coated in it, covered in gray. Okay, now we just let it sit. We'll come back tomorrow and finish this. I know it's got a cure. It's very humid or fumey in here. Let's get out of here. All right, we're back. Everything's cured. Shop is hot, and we're ready for some black paint. So interior, all this getting black, everything. Don't care about overspray on the other side. Not a big deal. It's gonna get white. Grill's gonna get black. This intake line for the turbo is gonna be black, and then the steps are gonna be black. And then back here, this is the front of the cab that covers the hand pump, and that'll be white. So that stays white. Oh yeah, and this little piece here stays white. So black, 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 black. Got it? Let's do it. And then we'll wait 2 days. It's the weekend, and we'll come back and then do the white paint. So that'll be fun. But for now, just a little more paint mixing. It's his favorite job. He loves it. Loves paint so much. Did we pick the high gloss again? I think we did. Whatever. It'll be shiny, who cares? It'll get dirt on it. Yeah. While he's doing that, just have to step back for a minute and look at this thing. We have it on blocks right now because I was trying to tip the front of this tractor up a little bit to finish draining those fuel tanks out. So that way it's tipped back, because it's kind of tipped forward and plugs in the back. The thing is gigantic. Like every day I walk in here and I talk to my brother. This is ridiculous. Oh, I love it. We got like this much room to spare and the tip right up there. Just this much. Once the blocks come out, then we got this much room, so we're good. He's a brute. Can't wait. And at the end of this project, I plan on getting a rough numbers on what we have into it with ourselves, how much sponsorship value was added to the tractor, and then also just roughly how many man hours I think we have in it too. We haven't been logging, but I have a pretty good idea knowing just roughly how many hours a week we work, and 3 of us guys, 2 of us guys, sometimes 1, sometimes half a guy, depending on how much virus is flowing through our blood. So we'll know, but eventually, yeah, hang on, you'll get some numbers when it's all said and done. We'll see. Was it worth it?
Hey, guess what? This is like the last major painting thing that we have to get done. So we masked off all the insides, so hopefully no white will go through and speckle the nice black interior. We're leaving the door on when we're doing this. We decided to be that easier. I can swing it out like this. I can shoot right around here, and then I can swing it back over, and then I can shoot this side, and I think that'll work out great. The idea, originally we're gonna let's lift it up from the crane, we'll paint underneath it like we did earlier. But then we started looking at it, it's like, you know what, there's enough room underneath there, we can probably get it shot. So I'll paint the underneath, then I'll go to the top, and then work my way down. So that's the plan. But so far it's looking pretty decent, and I'd say, let's get this done. Because this is the last major thing that needs to get done before we can put it on there, and lots of hookups, and then wiring and a bunch of other stuff, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, Nick's eager. He's eager to get this done.
I'm ready to be done.
Yeah, me too.
With paint.
Yeah, I don't really like painting.
Excited for wiring.
That's my job.
Lots of wiring.
All right, let's get it done. All right, we moved all that plastic off the floor. It is a mess because there was a bunch of dirt and stuff on it that fell on the floor, so I got to clean the floor again. But I am going to start removing that stuff. I'm going to get rid of all of it. Ah! Oh, I'm so strong. Yeah. Don't worry, I didn't miss one. And, ah! Yeah. That would have really sucked if I screwed up and decided to punch metal instead of paper. Anyways, it is time to remove this stuff. And then it is gonna be up to 80 some degrees today. I'm gonna roll this cab outside and let it bake in the sun because it's a little soft. It's not sticky. Like I can move my hands all around on it, but it's just soft. I can, if I really wanted to, I could peel off the paint. It just needs a cure. That's all it needs. But yeah. That is pretty. Hi, Howie. How you doing, Howie? This is my dog. He decided to run over here from my house. Yep, and then there's Maverick right here. Best buds. Little puppy pals in crime. There's quite a few lines coming off this thing. So there may or may not be a integrated steering hydraulic system into this tractor. Yeah, that's cool. So what we're gonna do here is I've got a bunch of fittings that I've figured out what we need to do. We're gonna have pressure and return going to the hand pump from the main pump, and then you're gonna have your steering lines going to the steering cylinders, and then teeing off of that, which is all of these, you have to tee those off and go down into this doohickey. Well, that right there tells the whole hydraulic system which way to go. It's basically a glorified valve. Really cool system, by the way. Yeah. I'm not very good at talking about all the techie stuff, but I do know how to plumb stuff, so that's what I'm gonna do. Figure out my hydraulic lines, get them crimped, get them the right length, get that all done, so I don't have to go up and down a ladder to get that all figured out. So when this cab is ready, we can lift it up, put it on, and then we just gotta cut the main hoses to length to go underneath the cab, and voila. So yeah, that's the deal. Something like that. All right, a little bit of a talking point here. This is a load sensing system that I'm putting on the tractor. So the front pump on that transmission is only for the steering, and the fan is what I'm gonna do. Now, you need a load sensing line, which means there's a little steel, or a little 1/4 inch line that goes from the pump to this unit, then it goes through and up into my hand pump. When you turn the steering wheel, it's gonna send a pressure difference all the way down to your pump, which then it's gonna ramp it up to a certain pressure that you need to fulfill whatever you're trying to do. So if I'm really trying to whip that steering wheel around, it's gonna tell that pump to increase the pressure so I can get that flow. If I'm just slowly turning it back and forth just a little bit, it's only gonna tell that pump to send a little bit of oil up to my steering. The positive thing about having a load sensing system is it doesn't take a lot of horsepower. It basically, you need some flow? Okay, I'll give it to you. Oh, you need some flow? I will give it to you. I mean, I'll just pump it up to you. That's kind of the idea about it. So this system here is load sensing, and that's what we wanted. So now what I have to do is I gotta take all these lines off, go over, crimp them, make sure all these fittings are tight, and that is what I want. Then this line, go all the way down the pump. So far, I like how that turned out. I think that turned out actually very well. So what I'm doing is we're running 3/4 lines from the hand pump to the steering cylinders. But these are 1/2 inch lines going into that little valve unit. And the reason why you don't need huge lines going to that valve unit is because you're only sending a little bit of fluid back and forth to keep the tractor in a straight line. But when you're turning, you want to send a whole bunch of fluid to get that tractor to steer. It's probably a bit overkill, but that's what I like. I like overkill. It's a big bud. We got to do overkill. Let's crimp some lines. So now what I got to do is I got to make sure on this chart here, so 1/2 inch would be 8 die, and that was a 733. Yes, that's 733. This is 735. So I need to go over here, find my dies. I think these are 3/4 dies, and I'm not doing 3/4 yet, but I will. And it's 733. There we go. There's the 733s right there. Perfect. Okay. And then I need to turn the little pump on. There we go. Now for the 733, I need to adjust my pressure. So when it goes to a certain point, it'll automatically shut off, and I want it 7.03 right there. Let's take some lines off. And now I'm going to do each line at a time, so then that way I get them all back to the same way, because I don't want to like, oh, this one's too short. Oh wait, that one actually didn't go there, you know?